Can we find one more? Thank you, Savannah.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Let me call the July stated meeting, Town of Black Mountain Town Council to order and welcome everyone. It's nice to see a nice full house for the first time in months, 16 months, but welcome back everybody. And our good friend Deacon Bobby Stafford from the Mills Chapel Baptist Church is going to offer our invocation this evening. Bob, we appreciate you being here. And if you would, an invocation, we'll stand. And you can, if you like, maybe just come right here to do that. That way Gary will pick you up nicely for all the guests who are watching on the video.
The gracious Master, we assemble here today. But first we say thank you for allowing us to be here. For each and every life that's represented. For each cause that will be brought forth. We give you thanks and we praise your holy name. Thank you for watching over us today. Keeping us safe, hurt, harm, and danger. Realizing that around every corner there's evil lurking, but for some purpose or some reason you've allowed us once again to assemble here in your name. And we say thank you. Bless each and every one, we pray, that has come, and that Holy Spirit, you are welcome here in this place. That things will be done decently and in order. And at the end of the day, we can agree to disagree, but let our lives and let everything else roll on for the goodness of each and every one of this town of Black Mountain. Continue to bless and protect our law enforcement, our firefighters, first responders. And we just want to thank you for your grace and your mercy, for being so good to us, for you're better to us than we are to ourselves. And it's in the name of Jesus, your only begotten Son, that we give you thanks. Amen.
Thank you, Bobby. Appreciate that very much. Thank you for being here. The Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and you can be seated. I don't have any announcements this evening. Josh, do you have any announcements at this point in time? Hold yours for the end of the meeting.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
I do have a proclamation. Our friend Ruby Begley turned 100 years of age last month, and we have a proclamation for her. It was prepared for her, and let me read that. Whereas it is fitting and proper to honor and pay tribute to Ruby Begley as she celebrates her 100th birthday, and whereas Miss Begley is known for her kindness, warm personality, and many skills, and whereas Miss Begley and her late husband Marcus Begley have made many significant contributions to the town of Black Mountain, and whereas Miss Begley has been a member of Black Mountain Presbyterian Church since 1946, and served on the advisory committee for the senior center, was the Citizen of the Year for the Kiwanis, and has been recognized for her many civic activities. And whereas Miss Begley devoted her life to her family by teaching faith, respect for all people, lifelong learning, and generosity. And whereas Miss Begley has seen many changes in the town of Black Mountain and the world during her 100 years, but her enduring values confirm her love for her family, her church, her community, and friends. Now therefore, I, Larry B. Harris, Mayor of the Town of Black Mountain, do hereby proclaim July 13th, 2021 in the Town of Black Mountain as Ruby Begley Day, signed this 12th day of July 2021. Thank you. So then I'll pass this down to you. You can come and get it, whichever you'd like to do. We'll pass it down. Maybe pass my list, Ron's list down.
You did.
Lose the list. Thank you for preparing that. We do appreciate our elder leadership, and Miss Begley's a good example. Has been that for many, many years in many ways, and we value our citizens who have served us for decades upon decades, and there are many of them that if you reach 100, you deserve a proclamation. Citizen comments. The first would be Patricia Proser?
Patrick Prosser.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't get
That's
anything
all
right,
right.
did I? But you are welcome to come up, and you would stand. Where are we standing? We're seating?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and if you would, besides your name, your address, and that would be great, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay, name is Patrick Prosser, 303 Pinnacle Drive in,
Let me pull that down. There we
okay,
go.
yeah, 303 Pinnacle Drive, Black Mountain, Pennsylvania, or North Carolina. The question I had, or consideration I was asking for is, has the town thought about putting in a crosswalk in the middle of the block where like the new Seven Sisters business is? Because it seems like we drive down there frequently and people without a crosswalk at that spot seem to kind of like jut out between cars all through the block. And so I think if there was a consideration to put a crosswalk back in, I think there was one there before, it might be helpful for them to find a safe place to cross and for drivers not to have an issue with people just running out in front of their cars. So that's all I asked the board to consider, and that was my comment for tonight.
Thank you, Patrick. We appreciate that. We'll follow up and get you a little information on that. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Oliver Morgan.
Mr. Mayor and council members, thank you. My
Your
name-
address, Oliver?
What?
Your address?
My name is Oliver Morgan. My address is 801 Laurel Avenue, right at the intersection of Laurel Avenue and 10th Street. Again, thank you for considering our input. I bring the results of quite a lot of debate in our neighborhood about the junction between Laurel Avenue and 10th Street, and our observations. On one block of 10th Street, there are, I believe, 14 grade school and middle school children on both sides of the street who play. The speed of traffic down Laurel Avenue from Norfolk Road is quite excessive, and motorists do not pay attention to the junction with 10th Street. In fact, it is rather difficult for motorists crossing Laurel Avenue from 10th Street, who often find there are intersection difficulties. Furthermore, traffic coming up Laurel Avenue from the lake at the final moments before making that intersection, there is the crest of a hill, and very often motorists do not know to stop or slow down in time. So I've talked with a lot of my neighbours, and we did together prepare a petition which I submitted last week to ask respectfully the council to consider upgrading that intersection into a four-way stop, and to making sure there are warning signs about excessive speed. And also, we noticed that although the speed limit is declared in the ordinances on Laurel Avenue to be 25 miles an hour, there in fact is no sign saying 25 miles an hour for southbound motorists coming from North Fork Road until they are nearly at 9th Street. So it is a dangerous intersection. There are many children playing. There are inconveniences for motorists and the many pedestrians in the neighborhood. And we respectfully ask for a traffic study and, if possible, for the upgrading of that intersection. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Oliver. Charles Ledford. And if you would just name and your address, that'd be great.
My name is Charles Ledford, and I live on 42 Goldmont Street, Black Mountain, North Carolina. And the resident I live at, I've had 42 to 43 years. I'm not certain which way to go. But the matter of the lanes, the street areas that have been closed are in between, goes north and south, is what I'm trying to say. But the one I'm talking about strictly is the matter of from Ash over to Central. Mr. Patil doesn't know exactly what I'm talking about. But it is a matter of, I don't know if we were talking about wanting to get it closed. And I don't know what the word is, the choice has been said or anything about it, been stated or anything. But I can say one thing about it, that it needs to be, for one reason, it is a bear corridor. I mean, if you live there, you step out the door first and look, because that is nothing but bears walk right up through there from those restaurants. And it is one of the dangerous places to be in Black Mountain for bears. And we're just talking about just leaving it open instead of being, I mean, like it is. We maintain it, the people that join I own from Goldmont back to West College. So I maintain most of that on my side, and the other people on their side maintain a good part of it. And it's just a matter of wanting to try to make a point it stays closed instead of being open for any greenway or whatever. I don't know about like that. But it's just a matter, I mean, the other day there was a traffic stopped on West College to see about a 400-pound black bear sitting in Miss Dodd's yard, and it's a big one. So that's what I'm trying to speak about,
Yeah, thank you.
and that's what it is. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. We will follow up with you with some information on that. Rachel Sudnick.
Rachel Sudnick, 808 Laurel Avenue. I'm here with Oliver as a member of the community as well. I am one of the mothers of those children we don't have sidewalks, so they're constantly riding bikes and playing. So it would be lovely to have a stop sign or some kind of method to get people who don't regularly traverse that road to know to look for our children to slow them down. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate your comment.
Thank you.
Josh, could you take just a second and just, because that's two comments, but just about the traffic study, and then it'll come before the board.
Sure. So I informed the board, I guess it was last Thursday night for those that were here, we're going to be doing those studies. I don't need any action from the board. We do have money in our budget to do that. We're going to be looking at 3 intersections, that being one of them, 10th and Laurel, Cragmont and Tomahawk, and Cragmont, Bird, and Hiawassee.
Great, thank you, thank you. That is all, those are all our citizen comments at this point in the agenda. And so we have no reports from our staff or town leadership, department leadership this evening. And so Josh, we're on to the consent agenda.
All right. Consent agenda consists of 5A, which is adoption of minutes. This would be the June 14th, 2021 regular session meeting minutes, the June 10th, 2021 agenda meeting, June 3rd, 2021 special call meeting, June 10th, 2021 special call meeting, and the June 21st, 2021 special call meeting. Item 5B is a budget amendment for sanitation truck purchase. This is to recognize the loan proceeds we got for those last 2 trucks we got for sanitation. So we just want to recognize that as revenue from loan proceeds. Item 5C is an addendum of the collection contract with Buncombe County. Currently, we have a collection contract with Buncombe County to do our tax collection here in town. We are updating the contract in order for us to be able to put those, the money we get into a separate account. Currently, it goes into one account. That's how the agreement reads, and we want to move that to another account that is accruing more interest. 5D is a call for public hearing for text amendments to add a minor subdivision cooling off period. So what this is, this helps the, as you go through a major or minor subdivision process when you're developing property, this helps with circumvention of our major subdivision requirements. So if someone comes in with a minor subdivision and there is more property in that parcel, they will be required to wait 3 years before they can do any more subdividing unless they go with the major subdivision. That'll be a public hearing at the next meeting. 5E is a revised fee schedule. We adopted our fee schedule with our budget, but we missed a couple of things in the fees, water and golf rates. We did not have in what was adopted, so we got those updated, and there were some parks and recreation fees that were not updated as well. 5F, another budget amendment for police vehicle repair. This is to recognize some insurance proceeds that we got to fix one of the vehicles that was damaged. 5G is also a budget amendment to recognize the reimbursement from the settings for the repair of the booster station. We took over the settings water system, I guess I'm going to say about 1.5 years ago or so. And in that agreement, they are responsible for specific things, one in fact being the booster or pump station. So that was repaired and then they reimbursed us for that repair. 5H, building inspections interlocal agreement with Buncombe County. This is something we've had for a number of years. They are increasing their rates from $40 per inspection to $80 per inspection. And we use them if we get into a time of need, which isn't very often, but we do have that for backup in case we need it. 5I, this is CARES Act, or I don't know if I can remember the acronym for that. I can't remember the words, but this is the CARES Act money we got kind of at the beginning of the pandemic from the county. This is a project fund, special revenue project fund ordinance to set up, which we are required to do from the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. We were not aware of that when we received the money, but that is the case. So this is going to set up that special project fund for us. And 5J is a budget amendment for the Riverwalk Greenway. This is to recognize a funding we got from the county because they did fund in 3 separate payments, $400,000 total for the Riverwalk Greenway. And that'll be your consent agenda.
Josh, is E, the revised fee schedule, is that also a budget amendment? That's part of the budget ordinance, isn't it?
It's part of the budget ordinance, but I don't think that's considered a budget amendment.
Okay. All right, any questions for Josh on the consent agenda? Anyone?
Yes, the 5D, the minor subdivision cooling off period. We don't have that right now, so we're adding that period. Okay. And this was for public hearing to discuss that.
Yeah, it will be in August.
Any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Any other questions before we vote? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Great, thank you. We have citizen comments. These comments should pertain to items of unfinished or new business. If anyone wishes to make a comment, you are welcome to do so at this point in time. Hearing none, we'll move on with the 7th item on our agenda. Josh, unfinished business, the Riverwalk Greenway update.
So we have got a group effort on this presentation. So we have Fred Grogan here, I think, who will be able to answer questions or talk if he's asked. And also Jessica Trotman, who's the planning director here, is going to help lead us through this. But I will start off kind of just setting the stage on where we've been. So the Riverwalk Greenway we've worked on for a number of years, and that funding has been coming through Federal Highway Administration. So it's been federal funding that we're getting for this Greenway project, which is in the tune of about $6 million, I think was the total a few years ago. As we got into design, we did come into some issues behind, kind of back in behind the storage buildings on Swannanoa there, with some no-rise issues. Since we're using federal dollars, we are required to follow federal guidelines. And one of those guidelines is if there is a rise in floodwaters through an engineering study, then you are required to purchase the property that you are causing the rise on. That, in fact, would end up being around $1.5 million just in tax value for the properties that are affected. I think there's about 3 or 4 properties affected. So we worked through that. Since that, we have went over, I think, multiple options with council, with Greenway Commission, and of course internally with staff. And what we hope to do tonight is give you 2 options, hopefully the final 2 options. So council can make a decision so we can move forward with, getting this portion of the project, the endpoints figured out for this section, and I guess the northern section, and then get that on the MPO agenda, get the STIP and all that stuff amended. So we're gonna try to walk you through that. I'm gonna start out, go ahead and hit the next button. Where is my helper? Where is she? She's not even in here. All right. So we're just gonna give you a quick update, what we've been doing internally for this project as we're splitting it. And then we have an update on the Oaks Connector, which would be the section, I guess will be the Carlos Showers Riverwalk Greenway section. Greenway Commission recommendation. And then we're gonna talk about kind of what we've looked at as a holistic approach to an alternative solution, and then what our next steps are going to be. Thanks. All right, I don't want to read all this off to you, but so it's probably going to be November or December before all these steps occur, just because of meeting schedules. Our meeting schedules, MPO meeting schedules, DOT meeting schedules. Just takes a while to get everybody on the same page. We need to submit a no-build package for the original alignment. So this pretty much says we're not going to be able to build that original alignment due to unforeseen circumstances we found, which was the no-rise situation. DOT has been reviewing that already. And of course, Federal Highway Administration has to review that as well, and they're planning to do that later this month. The new alignment will be reviewed by the MPO subcommittees and the MPO board, and hopefully an amendment is made to the STIP reflecting the modifications that we're gonna have to make. At that point, we've got to develop a new application with the NCDOT to reflect the 2 segments of the project included in the federal funding. Of course, this results in a consolidated agreement of both the sections. And then we'll have to go through new contracts with our engineer on record, which is Michael Baker International. Currently, the western portion is being updated, the draft for that right now, and the new contract is going to be based on the rest of the balance of the project, essentially. So for the Oaks, we've already got that on the STIP, so it's been complete. So the STIP is the State Transportation Improvement Plan. That's already been sent and already been done. So we're good on that portion. Michael Baker is working on updating the budget. We've got to update our contract with Michael Baker, and of course that has to be approved and reviewed by town council. And then we are thinking the right-of-way documents at 60% submission will be submitted to DOT January, maybe sooner if we can push forward quicker. So what you have in front of you is the Greenway Commission recommendation. And let me start kind of at the very top, over on the right. That is behind the school, and that goes right into that is Flat Creek, excuse me. So that is Village Way that you see on the far right, where we talked about, I think last month, about doing the butterfly garden, if you remember that. So that's that section. And then it comes down, jumps on, I think that's Charlotte Street. Yes. So it turns down on Charlotte Street, and then it goes back behind the parking lot, back in the woods. That's the school parking lot on the back side. And then it comes and hits a little bit of Louisa Street, comes back down, then goes on to Richardson Boulevard. North Ridgeway Avenue. And then over to First Street. Not First Street. That's actually the alleyway up here on Midland Avenue. It's the trash trucks have used in the past, and those folks use that for parking on their at their residence there. And then it comes all the way down Midland Avenue, jumps across State Street, down Richardson Boulevard, which is the post office, then onto Sutton, and then down Broadway or 9, and then it skirts back around Bilo, which, we have existing rock dust path back there now, back around the dog park, comes back around. There's a spur that comes back up there close to the ABC store, and it goes under 9 using that culvert, and then back up, of course, to Black Mountain Avenue. So with this, I'm going to tell you we have not done any kind of engineering on this course. This is all just drawing a line on the map, essentially. We use DOT's, they have a bike and ped cost estimator tool that we use for a lot of projects like this. We have used that cost estimator tool, and it shows this project to be, just construction-wise, about $4 million for construction. That does not include engineering. I'll also say, as you come down Richardson there, where the post office is, this would be a multi-use path. This whole route will be a multi-use path. In order for that to happen on Richardson, you're going to lose parking spaces or take property. There's just no way around it on Richardson. Also on Sutton, I think the plan from the Greenway Commission, and Julia's here if I misspeak, the plan on Sutton would be also to take parking spaces that are on Sutton there adjacent to the railroad tracks. And of course, when you come down, you get through the intersection, and they would like to see us kind of skirt around Bilo. We have already been in contact with Ingalls about getting an easement there, because we don't have an easement there to go through their parking. I'm not sure how long that's going to take, but we did reach out and try to get that information going. So that may be a couple of months, maybe 4 or 5 months, I'm not sure. And then you come back up to the ABC store, and of course, under number 9, which was the original route planned, if you recall, I think that's around $500,000 to do that portion, and then back up Black Mountain Avenue. Constrained alternatives. So we consulted our adopted plans, our design recommendations from FHWA and AASHTO in an effort to form a recommendation which makes the balance of the vision of the commission within a change of conditions as well as fiscal responsibility of public funds. Next. So here we're pulling out information from our new comprehensive plan that we just adopted. We know we want to be walkable and livable here, and connected and accessible. Next. And this is and what I'm doing now is kind of pushing you towards the other alternative, okay? So the other alternative, you'll see a map of that in a minute, but really we're looking at the shared lane or bike boulevard, which would be using sharrows and sidewalks. And you're going to be in that low volume range in the white as you see down there. No, I'm not sure where Jessica is. This is her. This is. Oh, you should have been up here. I can't look at it.
Why don't you just go take the reins and run with it?
Make sure you read every one of these lines.
They're seared in my brain. Okay, so originally when we were planning this meeting, I thought I was going to lead you all through this decision tree. Then I realized that was going to be painful for all of us. And really what I was doing is showing you the process that I've been evaluating based on the information Josh was just showing you, including a lot of variables. And those variables include everything from budget constraints. We have about $3.3 million left in this project to design and build the balance, as well as things like property owners. You know, I did speak to Ingalls a couple of times. They were very cooperative, but they said that decision just takes a while for them to make. And I said, like, a couple of weeks, and they said, well, it takes a while. And I said, well, I work with DOT, and I'm accustomed to that. And they said something along those lines. So I do think that that's supportive, but I also think that it would add length to the decision-making timeline, unfortunately. Other variables in the decision tree include putting a linear path along a railroad right-of-way. I have reached out to the real estate office, and they went from being very pleasant to non-communicative when I started pushing for actual details. Does that mean it cannot happen? No. Does it mean we won't get information? No. How long will that take? I cannot tell you. But traditionally speaking, railroads do not like to put linear paths in the right of way. And it's about 650 feet in that area. And that's for the liability. You don't want to peg somebody in the head with a rock as off the train. So other questions had to deal with, are we going the most direct route? That's a pretty standard question in transportation. FHWA is bike and ped money. It's not exclusively for greenways. And I think something that's been difficult in the design and figuring out what to do is that the primary purpose of this project has always been to take people safely as possible east to west across town. And the ability to put it in the woods along the river was awesome and just really icing on the cake. But it was a benefit. It was not a necessity. And unfortunately, we've really been pushed toward necessity at this point. And I just wanted to illustrate the fact that there are many variables, and each time you hit a variable, whether it be budgetary constraints, property owners, easements, and things like that nature, it pushes you in a different direction. And when we were not able to put the river walk project where we wanted to put it, we had a change in conditions. And when we plan projects, we have to respond to those changing conditions. We are not by the river anymore. We are in a fully built out urban environment with infrastructure in place that we have to navigate. And so we have to have a tolerance for change in those environments, whether that's losing parking spaces or not losing parking spaces and things like that. So this is where my brain has been most days and many nights for many months. And this is where we landed. And I say we, this idea has been floating around for a while. And it balances the vision of the Greenway Commission as much as possible, but also brings in budget and also aims to expedite the timeline of the project as much as possible. So if you look in the sort of aqua blue color line, that is, I am suggesting that be improvements of bike and ped in various sidewalk and sharrow combinations. And some of those, including the sharrows on State Street, are already called for in the Black Mountain Bike Plan. And also, then we would move down to see the endpoint, can't quite reach this, intersection improvements. That's where the federal project would pick up with a multi-use path. I'm not sure on which side of the street. One side of the street there's pros and cons on both sides. One side, it has more room, but the other side has a lot of utility and it's a little tight. And then in the pink line, that would be the easement from Ingalls. And then in the back in the yellow is the existing rock dust path that we would hope to make improvements to as soon as possible, including drainage improvements and paving. And the green line multi-use path connects you back to our existing in the Oaks connector, or the Oaks connector. You can go on to the next.
So before you move on, could you just take, for the benefit of
Yes.
everyone and those online or looking at the presentation online, could you just take us briefly down the route?
Yes, so this would start at the end of the sidewalk on Charlotte Street, and we would install new sidewalk down Charlotte on the school side where it's grass. And then we would come down State Street, making sidewalk improvements and doing shared the road signage and shared symbology on the road. I would also say that we would likely bring in one of our traffic consultants to make sure everything is up to speed with safety. And then we would go down Richardson with the same treatment and Sutton Avenue. And that's where we would use local dollars instead of federal dollars. And this is, I think, important in the timeline of this project that we've been mired down for a very long time. And I do not feel comfortable spending federal dollars on on infrastructure improvements that are already on the ground, and what amounts to, I want to borrow Tristan's phrase because I think it is apropos for this, $1 million sharrows. We don't need to have environmental reviews, historical document reviews, and all of the many hoops that are well intended from federal highways on something that is a light application. I think that would slow us down for no real purpose. The heavy lift really does begin at the intersection of 9 and Sutton, where we would need to see signal improvements and intersection improvements, and those are certainly not cheap to engage in. Similarly, the spur back to the dog park and the improvements of the trail are things that we could program into our existing budgets and proceed on our own timeline.
What's your best estimate of what this plan would cost?
So I've only priced out, because there's going to be such a variety of improvements on the blue, but for the federal project, construction was coming in around $700,000, design around $350,000 for the multi-use path in green.
And so that is a cost if you did, this is the greenway, or is that this?
That would be just the green section. That's the federal project.
But if it were a federal project, it would be $1 million.
Yeah,
plus,
1.3-ish.
plus.
These are very high level numbers.
But then, if it is a federal project, then we can apply the federal dollars,
That's
and we pay 20% of the cost versus we pay, but it's more expensive. But if we do it without it being a federal project, we pay all the costs, but the comparison's favorable, let's put it that way.
That's right. So that's why I wanted to include this heavier lift in the federal project. I think it is worth the time and the effort because of the amount of utilities, and you're dealing with signaled major roads. Those costs really do jump up rather quickly. But we could, if rescoped, that section also is the typology, and I'm just trying to speak to some of the MPO's feedback, is we originally applied for a multi-use path. And you can deviate from that when conditions are necessary, but we've had to do that a lot. Not only did we take a hit with the no-rise situation, we had landowners who did not want to provide easements on the western section, putting us on road Vance and Terry Estates. So I was hoping to find a section that was federally funded that applied the original typology that we requested.
So in this portion you're looking at, Council and Mayor, the only federally funded portion would be the portion in green.
In green.
So the turquoise would be locally, and then of course the pink and green would be locally.
What's the difference in what's the pink?
That would be an easement granted
An
by
easement.
Ingalls. It's, we don't have that easement currently.
What?
And so this is just sort of a side-by-side of the endpoints. I really tried to align them as best I could, utilizing a similar path.
Is there any potential for us to even have right-of-way on Midland?
There's potential for right of way. My concern on Midland is there are lots of utilities on the west side. The east side, there are lots of pretty landscaping. And those neighbors, Savannah and I did go out and talk to those neighbors today on the east side of Midland. I think the Greenway preferred it on the west side. The east side neighbors are not in favor, would not like to see a Greenway on their side. Now, the problem with going on the west side, you got the utility relocations. You've got folks with driveways who are gonna lose ample parking if they have a 10-foot greenway on their property. Also, the route that goes between those two houses, that's the alley, they use that now for access for their parking spaces. But it's constrained, I mean, everything's constrained, it
Right.
just is.
Right.
So, may I ask a question at this point, Mayor?
Yes, please.
So why was Midway and Richardson chosen as opposed to going down Ridgeway? On that.
So the original endpoint for this project is the primary school in that area. And so I think the Greenway Commission took the opportunity to align, and they can absolutely speak for themselves. At the time of our meeting, they did ask if they could move the endpoint, and at that time I said, maybe, I don't know for sure. So I told them to recommend what they really wanted to recommend, and that's where they shifted.
Is there any flexibility in that?
Or why I come down?
Instead of going down Midland and Richardson, going straight down Ridgeway, all the way.
Ridgeway's constrained and you've got the hill to deal with there. But like I said, everything's constrained. Some more than others.
Yeah.
I mean, anything's possible, right? I mean, anything's possible. I think something else to keep in mind is, anything we keep in federal money, which I would think we're gonna do if we're gonna be moving utilities and putting in multi-use path, we have to start over on. And what I mean by that is we have to start over from square one on that section, which means, working out with the engineer, getting cost estimates, going through the engineering, and all that's just phases and time. Which, it's taken us, 4 years to get to where we are now.
When you say upgrades to the sidewalk on State Street and then on Richardson, what does that actually look like?
I'm not sure yet. I would definitely bring in some of the active transportation consultants we've worked with before to make some of those recommendations. We would also have to collaborate very closely with NCDOT. ADA accessibility, I know it would be one of the first things on that list. And that anything beyond that, I'm going to be leaning on an active transportation consultant.
I mean, is there opportunity there to expand it, to widen it, and that?
There are limited opportunities for that. It depends on the street, and that would be negotiated through NCDOT. Certainly, that would be the goal. So, and there's also, this just kind of does a side-by-side on funding of the ability to reduce the endpoints and the scope of the project that's included in federal money as opposed to local funding. And it just kind of listed those things that we've talked about. But really, the benefit to that is it does give us that local control, and we can move that at the rate that you all are comfortable with funding it, and much fewer complications. Certainly working with DOT, never the fastest exercise we engage in, but fewer levels to get through.
And they want the town to have success in the project as well.
Absolutely.
They
DOT
just
has
have
been
their-
very flexible and supportive of trying to navigate this,
Yeah.
as well as the MPO.
Sorry, I have a few more questions
That's
before we
fine.
move on, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the map, this one, yeah? So on the stretch here on Sutton,
Mm-hmm.
that would be sidewalk,
Well, there is
Is the
existing
existing
sidewalk now.
so they'd just be upgrading that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the plan from the Greenway
And
Commission.
Sharrows, sorry.
And Sharrows. The plan from the Greenway Commission for the multi-use path, that would be on the opposite side of the road in those parking spots, is that correct?
That's in the proposal, yes.
And that is part of the right of way from the train, from the railroad?
The railroad goes up to Henson's.
We
The
can
right of way.
lease those spaces from railroad now, so we'd have to work out another lease option.
Okay,
If they would allow the linear path. If they do, it would be with some sort of barrier between.
okay.
Yep, you might want to
You
come
might
through
want
them.
to step up to the table.
I should have known better.
Yep.
Hi, Brett Grogan. In that case also, it is in the public project manual for Norfolk Southern not to allow parallel trails in their right of way. So that's something that's gonna have to be navigated regardless of that little corridor through there. Now, there's a stream and there's a bank up to the rail line. So it may be possible to work that section of roadway or greenway in, whatever improvements are determined, with a fencing along the back of the stream, but then you've got a stream. So it may not, when you see parking spaces there, and myself, I'm guilty for this, but you look at it and say, that's wide enough for a greenway. And it is, but you have ownerships that are involved in that, and they're not the most flexible ownerships that you would deal with. So that's
But
all I had to add.
To improve the
But not
sidewalk
just
there,
That'd be great.
That's fine.
to improve the sidewalk there, we would not need to work with railroad,
Yes, you would. Yes,
but we would.
you would.
Yeah, that's.
So either way, we have to
That's
work
the
with it.
problem.
We have existing sidewalk.
Right, to upgrade that sidewalk, we would also need permission from the railroad.
I'm not sure what the threshold is going to be for them to require negotiation on the approved sidewalk.
I think
I've not done that.
I think the issue with that is if you do extend that sidewalk to improve it to be more accessible, then you're pushing the road over, which means you're pushing that parking, you're eliminating that parking anyway. So it's, I think however you flex this thing, it's gonna involve some coordination with the railroad. Now, to what extent, I'm not sure. Again, as Jessica's suggesting, it may be a fairly straightforward conversation, if you're leasing it currently.
Okay. And then for the lower half, the proposal from the Greenway Commission,
Go back to it.
it incorporates the current path behind Bilo. And I know that we're talking about upgrading that anyway. Is there a reason why we wouldn't do that? Why you wouldn't follow this version for the lower half, or why you're recommending something else?
Yes, it's not the most direct path.
Jessica,
Oops, sorry.
Yeah.
It's not the most direct path, and it would be, it's not the most direct path, and it puts us going under 9 for no real gain. We have access to that area, we can improve that area, and we can do it quickly. It also does not preclude us from making those connections under 9 in the future. Just because we don't go under 9 right now doesn't mean we can't later. That's not prohibited. It took a while to get DOT on board in the first place, but they are now. And, I can't speak indefinitely about the appetite for those crossings from DOT, but these sorts of things are more and more common. It's also very expensive to put in full greenway through that area and spend, upwards of $400,000 to go under 9 for the sake of going under 9. I just can't find the real gain in the alignment for that. Going under 9 was only best from understand the history of the project, came onto the scene when the project became oriented to the river as that experience and that connection. And so when you were coming from a different trajectory, it made sense. It was cohesive, it had a typology to it, and you were going in that direction. But this project is not doing that anymore.
Okay. And if you go back to Jessica's proposal, the green section there, that would be multi-use.
Yes.
But on either end would not be, right? So we just have basically like a 2-block section of multi-use.
No, that would be multi-use, and then, of course, the things we're looking at with town projects would be multi-use. Then the project, briefly splits through the neighborhood. We have bike on Terry Estates, ped on Vance, and then we have multi-use path again where they join up
At the Oaks.
toward the Oaks.
Okay, thank you.
anyone else at this point? Great, thanks.
And so I just want to put this in the context of broader bike and ped efforts in town. Sometimes I'm concerned that there is we are all disappointed this project didn't shake out like we expected. I mean, it's caused a lot of heartache for a lot of people. But I also want everybody to be very aware that this is not the only project we have in town, and it's not our only opportunity to have really fantastic bike and ped facilities. So in this year's budget, Public Works has $20,000 for sidewalk repair and replacement. They have $100,000 extending sidewalk on NC9. And currently we're working with NCDOT to get share roads and signage on State Street from Ridgeway to Cragmont, which is identified as a priority project in our bike plan. And we're also working on kind of taking a little bit more modern take on the idea of just bike lanes and bike connectivity and developing a branded neighborhood bike boulevard connecting Lake Tomahawk and the Black Creek Greenway. We've also started a database of property owners who are on Greenway corridors so we can gauge interest, to providing estimates for future Greenway development opportunities, so we can really know where our opportunities are for project development. There are projects in our Greenway Master Plan that have only a handful of property owners involved, if not only one. And it could be a phone call to find out that there's support and, and a partnership there. So we need to find out and identify those stakeholders. We're also looking at improving the design of the loop around Veterans Park. Don't know if you've all been out there, but we are very close to wrapping up the restoration of the Swannanoa River, and it looks amazing. And so it would be wonderful if we could make some improvements to the loop to have a bit more traditional Greenway look and feel instead of just more of a track feel, particularly in relationship to the river, and include amenities like picnic tables and fitness stations. And then we're also discussing funding paving the Lake Tomahawk Loop, getting that rock dust out of the lake, and also working on some early steps to install a Feinstein path on Pragmont Park walking trail, which is also in the Greenway Master Plan. And further up the food chain, some of these will ring a bell for Tristan, is that we've been talking to the NPO and NCDOT and anyone who will listen about advancing modernization of Blue Ridge Road, and bringing that project back to life, because if Blue Ridge Road is modernized, we will have complete streets treatment on that huge corridor, and it would be a wonderful connection for everybody. We're also working with NCDOT to align bike and ped recommendations for the Blue Ridge Road Small Area Plan with interchange. And also, there are mixed feelings from some folks, but exciting ideas about a lane reduction or road diet on US 70 to create a multi-use path from where the sidewalk ends, basically down to town limits. So there's a lot of momentum to continuing to develop our bike and ped networks. The reality is that these things were not put on the ground first, and we have very limited space to put things. And how do we find a typology that best fits those areas and gets people places safely? It's not always the most fun way, and it's not always the prettiest way, but the question is it safe, and is it practical, and is it achievable?
Yep.
That's it.
Thank you, appreciate that. Anything else from you, Fred?
Yes.
Board, any questions for either one of them as we wrap up the presentation?
Sorry, just one more clarification. I'm sorry, I think this was asked and answered earlier, but just so I fully understand. If we were to, say, move forward with the Greenway Commission's plan, we would be starting over from scratch with all of the,
That's correct.
okay.
Unless you do it locally, but I don't think we can afford to do it locally.
All right, thank you very much. And maybe you want to stay there, maybe as the board deliberates, I may have a question for you. But, Board of Council, I'll turn it over to you to see if you feel that you are ready to provide direction on this tonight. We've had it on the agenda, I think the public is aware of this for
Five.
Yes, it's really all year. We've had this on the agenda, and the concern has always been, construction costs are skyrocketing. They were expensive to start with, and they skyrocket. And I think the last number I heard, which is an old number, is Greenway, generally speaking, you probably can't say it all does this, is about $1 million a mile. I hope it's not two. It's $2 million.
Actually, depends on your terrain and
Right.
the constraints,
Right.
but it's up to 3.
That was an old number, and I
Yeah.
buy that because of the way
Yeah.
all construction has skyrocketed a lot in the past, less than a year even, frankly.
Last
So,
6 months have been awful.
yeah, that really makes sense. So not only has construction costs skyrocketed to, generally speaking, $2 million a mile, but the process, and as a reminder for those, the process by which these federal funds are applied and utilized is laborious. And that's not a factor. That's really what drives a good bit of the consideration, is that to change route, you're going back to square zero, and not only adding probably some years, I mean, I shouldn't say probably, likely some years to the project to go back to square one. But then again, the construction costs then have to be a consideration, and then quite frankly, funding and the priorities with these dollars and so forth, because we don't actually have control over we have our budget, but we're gonna exceed budget because of construction costs, so we have to look for some ways to economize, it seems to me. And so confronted with the decision that we have to make, which is something, because the original plan doesn't work, those are just the trade-offs we have. So I offer that 2 cents worth.
Jessica, did the Greenways Commission have a thorough conversation about these two alternatives?
The Greenways Commission made developed their recommendation on their own. We've talked about every incarnation of these ideas have been floated, and percolated, for months.
So they haven't actually considered the constrained alternative?
No, we've talked about, alternatives. I mean, when they went to and walked the areas, the ability to move endpoints and things like that have been discussed.
Right. I'm not sure of the proper procedure at this point, but I know Julia's here, and I kind of would love to hear her thoughts on this. Is that public comment?
Well, I think it should have been public comment,
Right,
and
okay.
I hesitate if some others wanted to speak.
Yeah, I get it.
It's hard to manage. But if council wants to allow, one more month to have Greenway Commission input on the alternative plan that town staff has presented, that's an option for you. Because even though Julie is representing the Greenway Commission, she doesn't speak for, doesn't speak for everybody. So if you really want their input, it probably needs to go back to them for their comments. For the entire commission's comments. But I just don't think it's gonna change the major variables that we're having to deal with. That's just where they are. It could be that, I'm wondering about this, as we move through, let's say the council tonight chooses to pursue the alternative route that's been presented. Well, there may be some components that the Greenway Commission might want to add and incorporate that certainly might be doable, because some of this the town's controlling. We're not having to
For
go
sure.
through the federal process, and those could be considered on a good bit of the route, because the town's paying for it and we're not using federal dollars.
Absolutely. And, also even in the sections that are federally funded, as we have learned, things come up.
Right,
And
Right.
this is not the only decision we will make.
right.
In this case, I don't feel like we have a real alternative, but I don't want to make a habit of bypassing our commissions and boards. I think they're there for a reason, and this might be a unique situation, but I really do like the idea of using those folks to do what we've asked them to do before we're asked to make a recommendation. But I get it that this one's a really awful situation.
Yeah, and I would, like Jessica said, I think they've looked at both of these alternatives
Okay,
probably for 5 months.
okay.
We have been, I feel like we have all really the reason we keep having alternatives is because we keep looking for a different way, to make it work. But it's just not easy.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just want to say I really do appreciate staff
Yeah.
being so thorough and dedicated, and Fred, you as well, in looking at all these alternatives, coming back to us. I know this is not, as it's been said a number of times tonight, this is not the alternative that any of us wanted, but this is what we're left with, and these are our decisions. And because of the timetable, and I do think that the opportunity of what you've shown tonight with this alternative, with the town taking the lead on that project, it could be both beneficial to the look and appearance of our downtown. It can also give input and control through our ability to manage the project. And I think regardless, this is going to be a project that the town is going to be proud of. So with that being said, Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to approve the constrained alternative as presented by staff tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Any other discussion or questions by council? We have a motion on the table.
I have a few more questions. That's all right. Sorry.
No, you don't have to apologize.
All right.
Go right ahead.
We've talked a lot about share roads, especially on State Street and Richardson. Is there any opportunity for us to do designated bike lanes?
We can definitely do Sharrows. The bike plan approved by DOT in the past includes Sharrows specifically. And if we are able to get DOT to approve bike lane specific, then absolutely. But that's going to be their call.
I think the biggest hangup for me as an avid cyclist and as someone who takes my kids in the trailer behind the bike regularly is that I would not feel super comfortable even with Sharrows, going down State Street.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons we're looking at the neighborhood boulevard treatments for cyclists, because they intentionally divert traffic away cut through traffic through neighborhoods and prioritize cyclists.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, say that again?
Under this just staff projects that we're working on,
Mm-hmm.
we're
I
working
see what you're
on
saying.
bicycle boulevard treatments through residential areas, so we can prioritize cycling traffic in those areas and not incentivize or encourage cut through traffic and things like that.
Got it.
And so we have those environments that have more separation.
But I thank you very much for all your work on this. I know it's been a lot.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? We have a motion to accept the alternative route as presented by town staff.
So moved.
Yeah, well, we already have
We did.
motion. Yes, we're good. We're good. Any other questions?
No questions.
Mr. Tiller? Okay. All right. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Great. Thank you. Thanks for your work,
Can I
presentation.
can I
Yes,
stop
yes.
you right there for just a second, Mr. Mayor? Jessica, is there something else I need to vote on with this?
Yes. So in order to submit the no build document to NCDOT, we actually need a motion to not buy out the properties impacted by RISE.
Right.
So it sounds kind of like a backwards motion, but it needs to be formal.
So we would entertain a motion that the council does not wish to entertain purchasing the properties that would address the rise.
Yes.
What location would we call it in the
This would
motion?
be off Center Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
Off Center Avenue. Okay, is that clear enough for the minutes and so forth? So is anyone on council willing to make that motion?
So moved.
Great, thank you, Mr. Stone. Any questions? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no.
I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So we are on to new business, American Rescue Plan Act discussion.
All right. So, as you all know, we've talked about the American Rescue Plan in the past. We're set to get $2.39 million in two installments, one this year and one next year. We are still waiting for that first installment. And Tammy's tired of hearing me ask for it every day, but we're waiting on that. And since then, I've had two individual conversations. One with, almost said Alderman, Councilmember King, and one with Councilmember Hay. And this agenda item would be to give the essential employees a $500 bonus. And that would be, of course, when the money becomes available, hopefully soon. But that ends up being around $43,000 total of that $2.39 million. So that's what this agenda item is.
Great. For a little perspective, even with the first one half of the funds that could arrive any day, the projects, the infrastructure projects that has been designated for, the stormwater project, i.e. the dam at Lake Tomahawk that has to be repaired, and also the water line from the pump station to, let's just say, to Blue Ridge Road up 70. That's, I think, apt enough description. Those projects will likely straddle budget years, and so it's not, I think it's, with the other one half coming in, it gives us plenty of buffer, I think. So I appreciate Councilmember Hay and King, bringing the matter up. I think it's a good idea. I'd entertain a motion to that extent.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Patiller. Any questions on that? Comments?
I'd just like to say that our town staff did an extraordinary job during the pandemic. And as I read the extensive documents around their parameters around how you can spend this American Rescue Plan money, one of the clear permissible uses was to offer bonuses to essential staff during the pandemic. And I thought our staff deserves that. So I hope this bonus will let them know how much we appreciate the work. I mean, it was a lot and it was dangerous, I'm sure, at times. So that was my thinking about proposing this.
Yeah, and I think we all wholeheartedly agree with that. It's a great suggestion, idea. We do appreciate everyone. It's been, here we are on the other side of it, thankfully, and we appreciate the labors in particular in those first months when things were very much unknown and everybody moved forward and did such a super job, and I couldn't agree more. So it's a great idea. We have a motion on the floor. Any other questions or comments? If not, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Josh, the golf cart financing.
So what you have in front of you, 8B, this is the financing, to approve financing for the golf carts for, of course, the golf course. We talked about this a few months ago, and this is just to get the loan ready. We are anticipating the carts being here in August. So hopefully within the next few weeks, we'll get those carts. The total amount we're financing is $170,000. If we do a 3-year term, we'll have an interest rate of 1.28%. It's about $58,000 a year for 3 years for those payments.
And as a reminder, going this route, and it's not terribly material between the 3 and 5 year, but going this route versus the other option that was presented to us was significantly different in the cost of the project. So that is why we're there with this financing. Do I have a motion to approve the financing plan as presented?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the financing terms as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Patillo. Any questions or comments? If not, all those in favor of the golf cart financing plan as presented in the agenda materials and the town manager, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Very good. We're on to ready to fill our town council vacancy. And with that, I'll call on the town clerk to manage the process. Makes it easy for me.
Yes, so you should all have in front of you a ballot for the town council vacancy. You know that you have 5 applicants. They were included in your agenda packet, so you should have had time to review those. So if you'd like to just go ahead and fill those out, I'll come around and pick them up and read them.
Savannah, can you clarify the process if we don't have a clear winner here?
So if we do not have a front runner, we will just go through the process again until we do.
Very well.
Okay, Councilmember Doug Hay nominates William Christie. Councilmember Archie Fertiller nominates William Christie. Vice Mayor Ryan Stone nominates William Christie, and Councilmember Pam King nominates Suzanne Hosh.
So I think we have a majority there. Very good. Mr. Christie? We are, if you would like to, congratulations, and we are happy to have you join the.
Can I say something
Oh, yes, go ahead.
before we do
We need to
that?
vote, yeah, we do need to vote, but we can still vote, I still want to do this. We'll vote on that in a minute, because the board has to vote on it. But if you would like to be sworn in now, the town clerk can swear you in. If you would prefer to be sworn in at the end of our regular agenda before communications, we can do it then if you'd prefer to, but if you're ready to finish up the agenda with us, that's fine. Okay, when we're finished voting, just come on up. Okay, so we would have a motion to appoint William Christie to fill the unexpired term ending December 12th, 2022 by a vote of 3 to, I wouldn't say 1 against, but I guess we should. one for another candidate would be really a good way to put it. 3 for, and 1 for another candidate versus against. How about that?
Mr. Mayor, I would make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Any
And-
comment? Oops, go
Oh,
right
no,
ahead.
I'm sorry, but Councilmember King did have a comment.
Uh-huh.
I have a comment. I'd like to say how grateful I am that we had so many delightful, just really stellar candidates for this position, people that threw their hats in the ring, and I know it's not easy. It takes courage to do that, and how wonderful is it that we had choices that were so, really good candidates. So thank you all, to everyone who threw their hat in the ring this time.
Great. You have a motion? Great.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. And I agree. Any other comments? If not, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
And any opposed, no. Great, thank you. So
She ran to get what she needed
You'll
to get. She'll
come
be
on
back in
up
just a
and-
second.
we'll get you sworn in. Should have, you're underdressed.
I didn't wear a tie when I got sworn in either, so.
What were you thinking?
That thought comes next, Ron.
What did I just do?
Is she ready to get something? Or she's right?
She had to get, rub didn't happen. You gotta get the phone out.
She forgot to bring it. We had planned on doing it this way, but she just forgot to pull it.
Or we did that.
Didn't know who.
But then have to do it.
She has to fill it out.
While we're waiting, if I may echo Councilmember King's comments earlier about all of the candidates, and having spoken to several of them, I was very inspired by everyone, and I'm really glad that everyone was willing to put their name in the hat, and I hope that even if they're not serving on the council, then they can get involved in other ways. And I'm just really excited that we have so many eager people in the community willing to do that.
You want to, Savannah, maybe move over here so that Gary can get you, and you and Bill.
For
And you just want to repeat after me. I, William Christie,
I, William Christie,
do solemnly and sincerely swear
do solemnly and sincerely swear
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States,
that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers and authorities
and to the constitutional powers and authorities
which are or may be established
which are or may be established
for the government thereof,
for the government thereof,
that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution
that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution
of said state,
of said state,
not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States,
not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office as council member,
that I will faithfully
discharge
discharge the duties of the office of council member
of the town of Black Mountain, North Carolina.
of the town of Black Mountain, North Carolina.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Bill.
You will sign right here.
sign, change his mind.
Stand with us.
Okay. I'm here to get you started.
Poor guy. All right, Savannah, we're ready to go on to the board appointments to the planning board.
Yes, so same process, you will make 3 appointments, we'll just take them one at a time, to avoid confusion. So if you'll fill out the first one, I will come around to grab it.
Right, thank you.
One person on each one, right?
I'll just take it first.
Sorry, very good. Thank you.
And this is to appoint one of the candidates to fill a 3-year term ending June the 30th, 2024.
For our planning board appointment, for the first vacancy, Councilmember Archie Pertiller nominates Kathy Phillips. Councilmember Doug Hay nominates Kathy Phillips. Councilmember Pam King nominates Kathy Phillips, and Vice Mayor Ryan Stone nominated Pam Norton.
So that would be 3 in favor of Kathy Phillips, meaning that she has been appointed to the seat.
We
By
still
vote.
need to vote, and you can still choose, obviously, to vote unanimously with the rest of the board.
Right,
Yeah.
Well, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion for this one seat. So I'd entertain a motion to appoint Kathy Phillips to fill a 3-year term ending June the 30th, 2024, by a vote of 3 for 4 and 1 for another candidate.
So moved.
Thank you. Mr. Hay, are there any questions? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed, no. All right. This is also for the same term, a 3-year term ending June the 30th, 2024.
Okay. For our second vacant seat, Councilmember Archie Pertiller nominates Jay Palmer. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Councilmember Pam King nominates Pam Norton. Vice Mayor Ryan Stone nominated Pam Norton. And Councilmember Doug Hay also nominated Pam Norton.
Did we get a Bill Christie?
I don't think he's got any slips.
He doesn't have any ballots right now. But
He's member of council now.
yes,
But
so
he didn't have the board packet.
No, no.
he did not.
Well, he's still a member of council.
Yes, he can.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
So we need to get him a ballot, or, we can, if it's agreeable to the board, Bill can vote when we're voting on the candidate, and you can by comment, make any comments you want before we vote. How about that? Does that sound good?
That sounds
Does
good.
that sound good to everybody? Okay. So, where are we on this?
You just not, you had the votes for Pam Norton.
3 votes for Pam Norton. Very good.
And one for Jay.
And so I'd entertain a motion to appoint Pam Norton to fill a 3-year term ending June the 30th, 2024 by a vote of 3, 4, and 1 for another candidate.
So moved.
Very good. Have a motion. Anyone choose to make any comments? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed, no. And then the last seat on the planning board.
For our third vacancy, Vice Mayor Ryan Stone nominates Chas Fitzgerald. Councilmember Pam King nominates Chas Fitzgerald. Councilmember Archie Pertiller nominates Pam Norton. And Councilmember Doug Hay nominates Chas Fitzgerald.
So Chas Fitzgerald had 3 votes, correct? Very good. So, I would entertain a motion to appoint Chaz Fitzgerald to fill a 3-year term ending June the 30th, 2024 by a vote of 3-4 and 1 for another candidate.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Any other questions or comments on that? And if not, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Okay, on to the Historic Preservation Commission.
So there are 2 vacancies on historic preservation, but we received 1 application. Our policy states when there's only 1 applicant, we do not do a ballot, so we'll just do a motion.
So I would entertain a motion to appoint Jay Palmer to fill a 3-year term ending June the 30th, 2024 for Historic Preservation Commission.
So moved.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on that? And if not, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. For the ABC Board, we have 1 vacancy for a 3-year term ending June the 30th, 2024, and we had 1 applicant. It's Rick Harwood. It has been the practice of council for quite a few years that we strive to encourage turnover, and so 2 terms, and we normally ask for a break, which we would have in this case had we had another applicant. But since we had no other applicant, and Mr. Harwood is willing to serve another 3-year term, and I understand he's done a fine job serving on the ABC Board, he is before you for that seat. And so I would entertain a motion to appoint Rick Harwood to fill a 3-year term ending June the 30th, 2024.
So moved.
Thank you. Any questions? Comments? And if none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. The Greenway Commission, we have, what do we have, Savannah? We have,
So the Greenways Commission reviewed 3 applications for 3 vacant seats, and they voted 7-0 to recommend Julia Weatherford, Julie White, and Lincoln Walters for those 3 vacant seats.
okay. And they're all the same. They're all the same. Very good.
So you have those ballots, and I will come around and
Since we have 3 vacancies and 3 applicants, should we do the same thing as we did with 1 applicant?
yes, we can do
Yes.
this. Yeah.
Yes.
That'll make it easier.
I'll entertain a motion to appoint, whoops, put the paper over, put it place back. To appoint Julia Weatherford, Julie White, and Lincoln Walters, each to appoint each one individually to fill a 3-year term ending June the 30th, 2024.
So moved.
We have a motion. Any other discussion on that? If none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, no. Zoning Board of Adjustment. 1 application for 3 alternate seats. And you can see that the Board of Adjustments voted 6-0 to recommend David Barley for appointment to this first alternate seat. He being the only candidate, I would entertain a motion to appoint David Barley as first alternate for Zoning Board of Adjustment.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Any questions or comments? If not, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. And the Recreation Commission, there were 2 applications received for a 3-year term ending June the 30th, 2024. One by Mr. Joseph Scotto and the other by Andrea Manzel. And there's 1 vacancy that remains open pending new applications. So if there's no objection from council, I would make a motion to appoint Joseph Scotto and Andrea Menzel, each individually, to appoint them to fill a 3-year term ending June the 30th, 2024.
So moved.
Any discussion? If none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Very good, and we're on to our public hearing to close a portion of unopened platted portion of right-of-way parallel and between West College Street and Goldmont Street and Central Avenue. I'd entertain a motion that we open the public hearing.
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed, no. Go right ahead.
All right.
Several property owners, I think there are 5, have submitted application to close a portion of right-of-way parallel and between West College Street, Goldmont Street, and Central Avenue. The requested portion runs north to south for West College Street, Goldmont Street alley between 132 West College Street and 34 Goldmont Street, and runs east to west from Central Avenue. The requested closure is approximately 150 feet in length and 15 feet wide for the portion of West College Street and Goldmont Street, and approximately 350 feet in length and 50 feet wide for the Central Avenue portion. The right-of-way is not identified in any adopted plans, nor is it part of a proposed greenway or roadway system project. The right-of-way is not part of a stormwater system or any particular special drainage area. And the planning board did not recommend closing either right-of-way in a vote 5-0 with 1 member abstaining. We'll clarify that the planning board really is saying no, they do not want to close the Central Avenue section because of its width. They felt that it is so wide it has the potential to be used for a project in the future. And in rejecting the application, because they were one application, created their own application, which you will hear next month, for the southern portion of the alleyway running perpendicular. It is not the most concise process, but that's what we have. So that was their recommendation, was to not close this portion of currently open right-of-way. And to speak to the public comment earlier, the right-of-ways are currently open. The request is to close them, and nothing changes with them unless the property owners so choose to change their use.
That's good clarification, thank you. Do we have any member of the public who wishes to speak to this? Please come up and just identify yourself and your address, and you have what comfortable time you need.
Good evening, I'm Mary Carol Dodd, and I'm here to speak about 132 West College Street, which is adjacent to the unused portion of Central Avenue. So, and I'm here also with Mr. Ledford, who owns the property next door. So we propose to close the unused portion of Central Avenue that runs east-west between West College Street and Goldmont, as well as the alleyway that runs parallel to Goldmont and West College that runs behind our homes. The property is currently overgrown and does not appear to be maintained by the town of Black Mountain. It's not being used for any purpose at this time. We have been maintaining the portion of Central Avenue that's nearest our property and would like to have it under our ownership to ensure a safe and aesthetically pleasing lot and home on West College Street. As many of the alleyways are being closed at this time, we also recommend the closing of this unused portion of Central Avenue, and it currently contains trees and fences. The other property owners adjacent to this land are also in agreement to close this unused portion of Central Avenue. Mr. Ledford had also shared with me he had branches falling on his fence from this portion because it is not maintained. And also, we feel that this is a safety issue for the folks that live along this unused portion of Central Avenue. It's my understanding there used to be a dirt path through the woods there, but we feel that this unofficial no man's land could provide a place for loitering or people hanging out, and currently we would not be able to control who's walking through that strip of land or hanging out in the woods in that overgrown area. So if this unused portion of woods was divided between the adjacent property owners, we could work to maintain the trees and care for that unused land that would be divided between us. Our main concern is safety, and we'd also like to be able to take care of the land that is not being maintained if it is to come under our ownership. And we're already maintaining it, as I told you before, and would like to continue to maintain it. So according to the packet from the April 26th Planning Board meeting, the closure of these portions, both the Central Avenue and that unused alleyway, do not contain any utilities, and they're not part of the Black Mountain Bike Plan or Comprehensive Plan or the Greenway Master Plan, Stormwater Master Plan, Recreation and Parks Master Plan, Pedestrian Plan, Wellhead Protection Plan, Hazard Mitigation Plan, or the Veterans Park Master Plan. So it's just a random wooded area that's not in use. And we propose to permanently close this unused portion of land and allow it to be divided between the adjacent landowners so that we can maintain it as a wooded area for years to come. It's important for us to be good stewards of this land and request that you all consider the permanent closure of this unused wooded area of Central Avenue for both the safety of the neighbors and the proper care of the land. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your comments. Does anyone else from the public wish to speak? We come right on up. And again, just state your name and address.
Charles Ledford, 42 Goldmont Street, Black Mountain. I fire up exactly upon what Ms. Dodd just now said in the matter of everything I was saying about the bears. That's exactly where they travel through at. And I mean, they come up through there quite often, but we do try to maintain it. In fact, you can come up West College Street and it's maintained along the highway of that section through there. Also, just that is, you'll find it's pretty well done. And everything is done like she said. But in the past, we have had a problem with drugs on our street, went right down through there. And that would be another problem we would be looking at right there if they do gather in that area. I know there has been a problem. Black Mountain Police has made, they travel my street quite often. And not for me, but they've been there. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wish to speak? Member of the public? If not, I would entertain a motion that we close the public hearing.
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
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 And opposed, no. Board comments?
So the property that they just spoke about is different than the property that Jessica, the planning board voted that it was too wide. Help me understand these two properties.
So I think if I'm gonna try this, so the planning board, the applicants petitioned the map, the whole piece, the whole closure of that right of way. I think the planning board didn't want to close the whole piece, but potential sections of that we haven't seen at this point.
So what are we voting on now?
You will be voting to approve or deny this street closure that's been submitted by the applicant for the whole section.
Whole section.
The entire section.
The entire section.
The key thing that the planning board had, I think that swayed their thinking on it. Am I correct on that, Jessica?
Yes.
Questions?
I think it's a much wider right of way than normal in this area.
But next month, we're gonna be talking about the other section.
If you approve this tonight, you won't be.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
Thank you.
So the way the
Get your microphone.
So the application included a T section of right-of-way, a 50-foot platted right-of-way, which is unusually wide, and then a narrower section coming down from it. Planning board did not have an issue with that lower section, but the application was made as one item. The practice of planning board for the last couple of years is when they get a right-of-way application that they feel either incomplete or can be modified in a way that they can support greater, they reject the current application in front of them and then generate their own application to be more comprehensive solution for what's in front of them. So because the northern section of this alleyway has already been closed, the planning board, they're rejecting the Central Avenue 50-foot platted section, has created an application going south. So that application looks, I have it in here, like this, coming down from that right away. And that will be coming to you at another time. But so specifically, planning board's issue was with that right of way, it being fairly, quite wide. But that said, it is not identified to be a priority use in any existing documents that the town has.
Great, thank you. Additional questions?
So that 50-foot right-of-way would not be included in the new
That's correct. It's not in the new application. It's only for the narrower piece.
And what's on the either side of that?
Streets or houses?
Streets or houses? So
You
it
would
backs
mean
up to,
street, houses then streets. Yeah, so it's West College and the Gold
would
Mines.
that ever connect to streets or does it back up against housing, private property?
You can see, and it connect, there are streets on either side. But we have no, at least, we have no identified plans to make that connection.
The planning board just felt it was wide enough that they gave.
It is unusually wide. You don't often see a 50-foot platted right-of-way.
Right.
We
Any other
often- yeah.
questions? Did you have another comment?
I was just gonna say, most of them are generally in like the 15-foot
Right,
range,
right,
yeah.
Right. Any other questions, comments? So before you is to approve or not to approve, to vote against, Resolution R 21-12 for the right-of-way closure.
I move to approve our -21-12 for the right-of-way closure.
Okay, motion is made. So to vote in favor of the motion, we would be closing the
That's right.
complete thing and the complete right-of-way. And just as a reminder, the planning board was 5-0 the other direction, which is not, this is council's decision. So any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of Mr. Hayes' motion to approve Resolution R-21-12 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And any opposed, no. So unanimous, it's closed. Thank you. And thank you, council. Mr. Sneed.
Well, if it's simple tonight, I gave you a list. At the agenda meeting, we asked, we brought up over the last couple of months, we started with the study that recommended that Black Mountain Swan Law Libraries, along with others, be closed and consolidated. The county commissioners don't seem to be falling behind that idea, but Brownie Newman, chairman of the county commissioners, came out and met with Pam King, and I think Melissa in the library for a while. And he asked, show us, if you wanted to improve this branch rather than be consolidated, give us your wish list of what you would like to see. And I passed out what it's turned out, Pam and Melissa Presley Library and put together. And it was pointed out earlier, your local libraries are going to be a different animal. Still have books, but that's going to be less of a focus than activities. And so that study reflected that you want usable spaces for people. And from that study, Melissa's only use of the library, dealing with the patrons who come in and what they want to see in the library, you have the wish list that's in front of you. This wish list has been to the Black Mountain Library Board, and they determined that it should go on as is. They didn't prioritize. We think that's something will come depending on budgeting and how the needs develop.
Very good. So this is being, and I wanted to add to Mr. Sneed's comments, just to be clear, so the public can be clear, that the commissioners had not received the report that came from the consultant that was engaged by the county library board that got out into the news, and they hadn't vetted it, they hadn't seen it, and that was never their intention to close the Black Mountain Library, to close the Oakley Library, to close the Weaverville Library. And so as Mr. Sneed said, Chairman Newman came out and met with us, assured us that was would not proceed in that fashion. And we also had two of the other commissioners that kindly came out and met with us as well and offered that same confirmation. So just so that the community can understand, it's certainly our understanding, and speaking with the commissioners, and they're taking their time to come out and meet with us, that is not the intention of the commissioners to do that, to close any of our current library buildings and consolidate. But there will be public input, and the consultant's plan will be reviewed, and have a more of a public discussion about it than was had previously. There actually wasn't a public discussion about it. So just to be clear that the public understands that, because there still, I think, is some understanding that it could happen, but it's certainly my understanding in speaking with Chairman Newman and the two commissioners who came out with us. Well, actually, I also spoke to the two other commissioners, and they have libraries in their communities too, and it didn't go over any better in any other community. So there's still work to be done on that. So appreciate the library board, the Friends of the Library Board working on this, and then as Mr. Sneed said, we will wait because they'll enter into budget. Actually, it'll be the 22-23 budget and probably fit this in some way. So we'll be out there a little bit before we start prioritizing, but I think we probably have to be prepared to prioritize a little bit.
I think so, and just for clarification, the library board's first reaction was the knee-jerk reaction, is not my library. But also on that same board, as we discussed it, they're still interested in knowing what would they get from a consolidated library.
Right.
They haven't shut down the idea if a consolidated library offers us something we cannot do.
Right. That's a good point. It's a good point. Did you have something?
Of course.
Happy to hear from you.
Just try to
Always
stop
happy to
me.
hear.
Yeah, so I appreciate the synopsis you provided, but to say that this came from a good place. This whole thing started from a good place, and I'm really grateful that Buncombe County wants to take a look at our library system. As a whole, it needs to be revamped and upgraded. Things have gotten a little, we've fallen behind, and it's time to take a look. So I'm grateful that they are doing that now. The process that they've used was not the best in my opinion, but at any rate, the commissioners were very responsive to our concerns, and they felt like they heard from many citizens in Black Mountain who felt the same way. I don't see this as knee-jerk either. I put a lot of thought into that, like, am I just being, I love my library, please don't change it, and I really don't think that's the case. I think many people in Black Mountain appreciate modern libraries and want to see ours be top-notch, but the location matters. And so that's why I went to bat for keeping our library where it currently is. After the commissioners heard from so many citizens, they paused the process. And right now, they're in the process of hosting listening sessions all over the county. There are 20 scheduled currently, and you can go to any one you want. But I will tell you that the one in Black Mountain is on July 20th at 6:30 p.m. at the Black Mountain Library. So if you care about libraries and our library, you might want to come and share your thoughts. That's what these sessions are for, so we can share what we want in our own library. And I guess that's all I have to say about that.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Great, thank you. Thank you for your leadership on the library, and all the different facets, man. Josh, do you have anything to report to us?
Real quick, I mentioned the intersection studies that will start on tomorrow. And then as far as our EV charging stations, that we were awarded the grant for the majority of those charging stations. 2 of them have been installed at Lake Tomahawk there at the pool. And then we've got 2 other ones that are going up at the library. I think they were supposed to start today. We are still waiting on some Wi-Fi signal boosters that should be here in the next few weeks, but those should be up and running shortly. And that's it.
Thank you. The only thing I would add, communications from mayor and town council, the only thing I would add is that from town was super busy 4th of July weekend, and it was pretty grand to see everybody enjoying the holiday and the great weather and being out and with each other. And we have a busy town, and that's a lot to be thankful for. And thanks for all everybody in the fire department and the police department and public works. And I know it's others are out there too, but I know that's a busy weekend of kind of being on alert and seeing what's going on, and we appreciate everybody's service and those who were on call over 4th of July weekend and so forth. But I thought it was I know we're coming out of the COVID sheltering and so forth, but I thought it was a pretty grand time and the fireworks were great. So, thank you. Members of the board, the council, any comments? Great, all right. So, I'd like to entertain a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel matters as permitted by North Carolina General Statute 143-13.11(6).
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Nothing.